Take a look in the mirror, hope you don't see your future self, and let's talk about
The initial codes. Part 1. The initial codes. Part 1. The initial codes.
Hey there, Trek fans, we've got the pilot of Strange New Worlds to talk about today with an episode of the same name. I've got a warp bomb full of spoilers if you'd like to boldly go somewhere no one's gone before. This episode had one seriously amazing scene and a whole lot of easygoing introduction to our characters. I guess being one of the few series that doesn't start with a two-parter, it's harder to both introduce the characters and tell a brilliant story. It's not the best or the worst pilot in the Trek franchise. The series takes place a little more than 3 months after the ending of Discovery Season 2. The Enterprise has undergone a refit in this time, and Pike is enjoying the time off at his wind turbine ranch in Montana. He's enjoying the company of another Starfleet captain and refuses to answer his comm. That causes Admiral Robert April to come play a game of chicken between shuttle and horse, and orders Chris back into the big chair, despite him not really wanting to go. I've got a like for this almost callback to the original pilot, The Cage, where we also saw Pike, after a difficult assignment, questioning whether or not to stay in Starfleet. This time his crisis of faith is because of what he saw on Borath when he took the time crystal in Discovery. He's sent out to find Una, who is captaining a small single-nacelle vessel, attempting to make first contact with a civilization that's apparently created warp technology. I've got a dislike for this whole thing bringing T'Pring back. When we first see them, her and Spock are playing this weird Vulcan game of questions, I guess? It seemed alluded to in a mock time that they hadn't seen each other since they were kids. And we know from the trailers that at some point Spock is going to do the Caliphate, which doesn't seem consistent with what we know about Vulcan marriages, and Spock's in particular. We see that Vulcans might actually have the sex more than every 7 years. One could argue that maybe this is Spock's Pon farr, but they never resolved it because Pike interrupts them. And what's going on with the glued-on pieces to simulate a bra? For a species that's all about practicality, this doesn't make a lot of sense, and it gets a dislike. When they go from Vulcan love slave to ship porn, one of these things ought to satiate someone's fetish somewhere. I've got a like for doing just enough of showing different angles of the new refit Enterprise without spending the 6 minutes that the motion picture did. It's not enough to dislike, but what's the point of Pike taking a shuttle to the ship if he's going to beam on board from the shuttle? I've got a like for the nice callback to Discovery with the shuttlecraft Stamets. Also, I'm not 100% sure, but it kind of looks like the ship at the other end of the same space dock to be a Crossfield-class ship like Discovery. There's also some nice talk about the backstory of Discovery's disappearance, which is supposed to be a secret never to be discussed again. I've got a like for Pike's line talking to Spock about what happened on Discovery when he asks about his impending doom, "How will it live in me?" This almost felt like a callback to DS9's In the Pale Moonlight, when Sisko asks, "I can live with it." When they finally locate Una's ship, we're hit with another callback as this is the USS Archer. It's a small ship by Federation standards, but it seems like it might take more than the 3 crew we're told about to operate. Anyway, the ship's empty and they figure out that they've been imprisoned. Things don't add up when they start assessing the race's technological progression. Turns out, they're not building a warp drive, they're building an antimatter bomb in a war between factions on the planet. After breaking Una and others out, they get into a quick but hokey fight scene before figuring out how these people got where they are. Apparently, this planet isn't far from where Discovery made its jump to the future, and these people saw in telescopes all the warp activity and the spatial rift the Red Angel suit opened. I've got a dislike here for time not adding up. Una says this happened less than a light year from this planet. So sometime within a year, they would see the events in a telescope. It's been 3 months. You're telling me that it was close enough to see fluctuations in space, build a prototype, test it, have Starfleet send a first contact team, and for Pike to get there all in 3 months? I appreciate that the writers are tying in the events of Discovery Season 2 to the plot, but this is quite a hole. Chris sends everyone but Spock back to the ship and demands to see the planet's leader. This is where it starts to get really good. I've got a like for Pike and this leader getting into a stick measuring contest. After convincing the two sides to negotiations, he injects himself into their discourse to show them maybe the most Star Trek thing ever. He shows both sides Earth today as the center of a galactic federation, and Earth near our present day falling apart, which is where these people seem to be headed. I have a second like for this, because not only is this a great scene within Star Trek, it's really directed at us, the audience. We can keep going down the path of the US Capitol riots, where everyone's mad at everyone else, or we can stop trying to hurt each other and move forward together as a species. Trek's legacy of using the problems of the day to tell us a story with a moral lives on loud and proud with this scene. It makes the entire episode worth watching. Which brings me to a dislike for the rest of the ending after this. It feels out of order and some logical closure points skipped over. This dislike is also for Hemmer just beaming on board in the last seconds without any introduction like the rest of the cast has gotten in the episode. Is this, though, some kind of nod to the joke in TNG and Discovery that we have no idea who the chief engineer is? Seems like an odd choice. More than that, it comes just after Pike has already said the classic Star Trek motto. And as a whole, this ending would have been better if most of it had been cut together differently. Let's swing back and talk about the other random stuff in the episode. I love Dr. Mbenga's first line. Never get the house dressing. We don't get to know much about him in this episode, but if this is his sense of humor, we're in for some fun watches. Chapel chasing this alien through the ship seemed really contrived, but I've got a like for the conversation between him and Uhura. She uses her quick thinking and language skills to calm this terrified Kylian. It was a really nice early use of her character skills. I've also got a like for La'an through the entire episode. I wasn't sure if I was going to like doing more augment stuff, but this character is incredible. She also uses quick thinking multiple times in the episode to get the crew where they're going. She's the only main character in the episode that conveyed more than a single emotion through their performance. I think I'm really going to enjoy watching her going forward. This episode was kind of muted through a lot of its run, but what it does well, it does near perfectly. It definitely feels like episodic Star Trek is back. It just didn't feel like the over-the-top pilots we're used to in Trek. I'm looking forward to seeing more. If you can't get enough breakdown of Strange New Worlds, I've joined a podcast panel of mostly other Trek YouTubers called Subspace Chatter, and we'll be live every Saturday morning at 11:30 Eastern Standard Time. Link in the description. I'll get my review of Picard Season 2 finale out soon. See you next week, Trek friends. I've been your host, Dustin Wing.